Let's figure out how to do a jump node in Dized. Now, default setting in Dized is that whenever you have two blocks that are connected to each other, they will draw a line between them. But what we want to do is to create a so-called jump step, which means that the tutorial will flow from, in this example, step 12 to step 13, and there is no line drawn. As said, the default is between two blocks, when there is a connection, a line will be drawn. But there is a way to go around that. While it's not, we don't officially have support in the tool yet, just to click and have some kind of a hide the flow arrow. There is a way to go around it. There's actually a few ways on how this can be done, but they all are based in the same principle, which is, to begin with, to do this we will need a new variable. Now what you call this variable is up to you. I typically call it a jump node. That's just something I've come up with and I like to use, and I used it in all my tutorials, so I always know exactly what variable jump node is when I see it. Now let's create a variable, give it a description. Jump between steps without drawing a flow arrow. It's always good to give the descriptions to the variables, so when you end up having 20 of them and you can't remember what does what, this will help you a lot. Now, what we need to do is to change the type of the variable. As said, it will draw a line. The editor will draw a line between two blocks, but we need to have the destination as a variable. So we create a variable and give it a type as a block. Now this variable's type is a block. We don't need to give it any default value or anything like that. We'll just save it here. There we go. Now we have a new variable which is called jump node. Let's go how it works. Let's see. We will add a logic here. Now what we want to do is to jump from step, let's give this a subtitle so when we preview this we know what happens. So what we want to do is to go from step 12 to step 13. In this case we will need a logic block in it. If you use a button, for example, you won't probably need a logic block at all, but I tend to use these anyway, just to make give the flow a bit better structure and it's easier to read. Go to, and I give these a name like this and a description. This logic block jumps to step 13, for example. Now I know exactly what this is, even when I'm looking at the flow for the first time. Now what we want to do is set variable. Remember we created the jump node, so we will set the variable's destination as the block 13. Now what happens here is that we created a jump node and gave it a type as a block, so we can give it a block destination in this case. That's why it's important to have it as a block. And now what we want to do is to go to block called jump node. Before that we need to change the type, so it goes to a variable called jump node. This needs to be a variable, and now it gives me the option of choosing it, and this is it. This is the most basic version of it. We will set the jump node a block variable, and we set its destination as step 13, and then we tell the editor to go to a jump node variable, and in this case it will not draw a line between them. 12 and 13. There we go. And that is the easiest way of creating a jump node in the Dized tutorial. Now there is of course different ways how to do this. For example, you might want to hide all of that code in a button, and especially when creating menu structures, you also want the tutorial to come back to where we left off. But we will cover that in the next example.